to your favourite teacher. Today we're going to be looking at Remains from the Power&Conflict cluster. Simon Armitage wrote his poem Remains from the perspective of a soldier returning home after being stationed in Iraq. As the poem was written at the height of the UK's involvement in the Iraq War, chose this setting, though the trauma the speaker feels clearly could be adapted to any soldiers of any other war zone. In this poem, it's clear the speaker suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, a mental illness commonly found in soldiers and other public service members who struggle to cope with the horrific nature of what they've seen or done in extremely stressful situations, such as war. Since a common symptom of PTSD is suffering from nightmares, depression, and panic attacks related to the traumas they have witnessed, Armitage works these horrifying experiences into the poem through the speaker's voice in order to imply the devastating effects of PTSD. Before even beginning to read the poem, readers can pick up on the disturbed mental state of the soldier simply by looking at the way the poem is structured. While all the stanzas are composed of 4 lines, there is no regular line length or rhyme scheme, apart from some half rhymes which occur in places like the rhyme of lorry and body. Furthermore, the poem contains a lot of enjambment lines, evoking the sound of a normal speaking voice rather than one of harmonious poetic rhythm. This enjambment, when one line runs into the next unpunctuated, is especially significant in showing how the speaker suffers, as it creates the impression that his story and thoughts ramble on and are difficult for him to contain as he speaks. One important example of enjambment appears near the end of the poem, where the speaker mentions the body of the man he shot living in his head. Armitage writes, "He's here in my head when I close my eyes, dug in behind enemy lines, not left for dead in some distant, sun-stunned, sand-smothered land." In this line, readers can see the struggle the soldier faces in recounting his memories in the way that his half-rhyme of eyes and lines and the flow created by the stanzas' very similarly sized first 2 lines is disrupted by the 3rd line. This line, "some distant, sun-stunned, sand-smothered land," not only ruins the rhythm, but also creates the effect that the speaker is stammering, stuttering, or possibly slurring his words because of the sibilance that Armitage uses. The disrupted nature of the speaker's voice is also emphasised by the use of caesuras, commas and full stops frequently appearing in the middle of the line, causing a sudden pause in the poem's flow. All of this together helps create the impression that the speaker of Armitage's poem is struggling to retell his events, and that his retelling is quite erratic. This struggling is significant as it helps Armitage imply the way that the speaker struggles to cope with his own memories of the war. Though the structure is very significant in the way the speaker's struggle to recount his memories is portrayed, he also chooses powerful language and creates imagery to show the trauma of the events. The speaker repeatedly makes use of colloquialism, slang, as well as vague word choices when recounting the memories. He states that the looter was possibly armed, probably not, multiple times, and describes being with somebody else and somebody else, suggesting his inability to remember exactly what's happened. Furthermore, the description of the man he has killed shows the same uncertainty. The man's body is described in the 3rd and 4th stanza with the lines, "And he's there, on the ground, sort of inside out. Pain itself, the image of agony." While the description evokes very gruesome, violent imagery, especially by the description of the man being inside out and the image of agony, it also evokes the way that the speaker struggles to recount this memory. He states that "sort of inside out," which creates an uncertain tone, similar to the vague language used in the rest of the poem. The events are even more clear by the verb choice Armitage employs, describing every round as it rips through his life, to suggest that the shooting was very violent. In the end then, this combination of violent and vague language is used not only to show the devastating effects war has on people who are killed in battle, but also to show the mental devastation which people who fight and survive in war suffer. Guilt is another key theme in the poem, as memories which the speaker carries won't leave him alone. The man's dead body is described as a blood shadow, which doesn't leave the street where he was killed. Furthermore, the bloody imagery is used by Armitage to evoke the soldier's guilt in the final lines. The soldier in the end states that the man was not left behind once he was killed, but instead he lives on in the soldier's mind within the lines, "Near to the knuckle, here and now, his bloody life in my bloody hands." The final image of the bloody hands is one which bears connotations of guilt through the expression of having blood on your hands. However, the fact that Armitage creates a pun here, playing on the two meanings of the word, bloody, implies that the speaker is trying to casually joke about the situation. While this pun might leave readers with the impression that the speaker is joking or very casual and blasé about what's occurred, it's probably the opposite. The soldier is implied to be someone so guilt-ridden by what he's seen and done that he has to make a joke in attempts to live with his own actions. Ultimately then, the soldier's guilt is not something which readers feel like he ought to be blamed for, as he, as a soldier, was simply doing his duty. Instead, seeing how torn apart the soldier has become because of his actions evokes sympathy for the speaker and for other soldiers in the modern world forced to make difficult decisions and live with terrible acts. I'm Miss Meeks and we've been studying remains from the Power and Conflict cluster.